Hail, Internet! It's Paul. It's Matt. The Dork Lords. We are here talking about the Lazarus Project. Season 1, Episode 2. We open with a flashback to the summer of 2018. Archie and her current Lazarus Project partner, Ross, sit on a rooftop in Russia, lamenting their failure to stop a nuclear war. They also mention they've both broken up with their romantic partners in order to be with each other. Then the missiles fly overhead, they die, and we get a reset, cutting back to the events at the end of the previous episode, where Archie calls George, gets distracted, and fails to save his true love, Sarah, from being hit by a truck. We end with the imprisoned Reberov talking to George. Sarah has tragically died, but at this point, a reset before next July seems unlikely, meaning Sarah will never come back. Reberov asks George if he'd be willing to create a massive catastrophe in order to force a reset, thus bringing Sarah back. George answers, yes.
Yes.
Fade to black. Oh, yeah. So that says, Paul.
Yes.
What'd you think of episode 2?
I was very pleased with episode 2.
I gotta say, I'm on board with that too. I think this is a very good episode. I liked it significantly better actually even than episode 1, and I liked episode 1, but I'm a big fan of this episode.
Yeah, they really took the time to lay out the sort of the world. And there's more to come. I've seen all of it, and am eagerly awaiting for the next season, which I think is supposed to be in the summer. They raised the stakes appropriately in the second episode.
The first episode introduced us to this high concept premise.
Yes.
Right? So it's like a large cast. We got some intricate rules. And then the show kind of asked us to care. I mean, like a whole world that an hour earlier hadn't meant anything to me. I didn't know anything about it. So I'm kind of like a prove it to me kind of person. Mm-hmm. Episode 2, damn it, started to prove it to me. I'm like, all right, I do care about the people in this world and how the rules operate. So well done. Yeah, it was focused. I love the structure of it. Yeah, it was well played.
Thankfully, I am. I'm glad that you connected with it.
We see Archie and Ross develop this long-term relationship as they continually try new and fruitless strategies to avoid nuclear war.
Yeah, which is good, right? Because you could easily expect time travel to be a panacea. Like, okay, well, we just go back in time and fix it, But no, it's like that only buys them just a little bit.
Yeah, and this show is very conscious of showing you the downsides to being a time traveler.
Yes.
Which normally, as you say, it's like, hey, I'm all powerful, whatever. But here, for instance, the fact that Ross and Archie had different strategies for breaking up with their significant others.
Yes.
He broke up with his significant other before the reset.
Yes.
So he only had to do it once.
Yeah.
She waited, and so she has to continually, when they wake up, like the first thing she does is like, hey, I don't love you anymore. Like she has to do that every time. Yeah. It's like, oh my God, just like the emotional weight of having to do that over and over again.
And they, with that character, the significant or soon to be ex-significant other of Archie, and another character, Sarah feels it as well, which is a sort of, hey, I feel like I know you.
Yeah. It's
or,
the deja
hey,
vu
I
type
think
thing.
I know what you're going to tell me that everything is over.
Yeah, suggesting that everyone has a little sense of these resets. Just that some people are more triggered into it than others.
Right, and it was what they bring up, Archie brings up to George, where it's like if once you, sort of accept, he's a mutant, so he's sort of picking it up, but, now he's sort of re-experiencing he's living that actually. It's not merely just flashbacks. He's actually re-experiencing all the different experiences that he had with Sarah.
Yeah, and another interesting point of this is there's this multitude of variations of his meeting. He meets Sarah at a party.
Yes.
Back in 2018. So it's the same year that all of these nuclear problems are happening.
Yes.
And so we see, and he sees, this flood of different versions of that meeting. And so it's another rule of this world, which is in some time travel scenarios, things play out exactly the same.
Yes.
And so it's just like, oh, where in the script do I stop? Oh, there. But here, no. What they're saying is a year stops, and maybe you're going to fix the major problem, but at the cost of altering the lives of countless people.
Yes.
Probably some for the better, but a lot for the worse. You're probably causing a lot of small problems, stopping a big problem.
Right.
And
they're really teeing you up for Rebrov and his criticisms of the Lazarus Project.
Well, and we see a little bit of why. I mean, first, his conversation, but he could be lying. But we actually see he's the one who's overhearing this devastated Archie.
Yes.
Begging them to reset, and they're like, "No, we're not going to reset." And Ross has died.
Yes.
But he's died, unfortunately for him, in the successful reset.
Yes.
And so she's just, I can't even imagine how she recovered from that, frankly. She's carrying that now.
Yeah.
And Rebrov is hearing her on the phone, the speakerphone, just like going crazy. And so, and at that time in 2018, he is still part of the Lazarus Project.
Yeah, and you kind of get a sense of why she might be at the beginning of the episode when George starts to question about the path. It's like, no, this is what we've chosen. This is, the consequences of what we change, and even though she's begging Wes to change everything, she's mad at Ross for making that choice, actually.
Right. So we hear, interestingly, that in an earlier reset, Archie died. And otherwise the reset worked.
Yeah.
But somehow, we don't see how, Ross convinced Wes to hit the reset.
No. I don't think he convinced him. I think he just didn't let anybody know that it worked.
Oh, you think so? Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
no, I don't think Wes is complicit.
Okay, I just feel like in other words, the bombs didn't drop, so we're not going to hit reset. But
No. I think it was sort of like, okay, that part worked, so now we can do X. And so he was like, I'm not going to do X.
So he found a way to keep her around because he wanted her around.
Yeah, I think he just didn't, it's like it would have worked. That one aspect of their plan would have worked. And so he just didn't let that be known.
All right. But he made that choice to bring her back.
Yes, it was his choice.
Yeah. Which is kind of where, George is now with Sarah. Right. He wants to make this choice, and he's up against a brick wall, which is the Lazarus Project.
Right.
But Rebrov has, given him the obvious solution to the problem.
Yes, he has.
If you can make him reset, guess what? Sarah's back.
Yeah.
And I believe George when he says yes. I know. When I think he's, and that's where I thought the show might be going after episode 1.
Okay.
And because George is set up as this, like in episode 1, it's like a hero origin story.
Sure.
And now he could very well become the sympathetic villain, which I love it. That's a great setup. He's the Anakin Skywalker, essentially. I'd be very disappointed if they just wrap it up in a single episode where he's like, I learned that that's a bad idea. Nope, I'm back to being a hero. Like, don't do it. Don't do it. You keep this guy, like, questioning this scenario for a while. Yeah. And so I assume that's what they're going to do. But, anyway. So it's great. I think that's really cool plot development. Yeah. We have bought in on George. George seems like a nice guy. He is flawed. We saw him with a couple of little moral quirks in the first episode.
Yes, we did.
And now we're like, this guy would consider.
Yeah.
But because I think part of it is also like, well, if it resets, he even brings up the point, like, we just reset. Okay. Some people aren't born, but other people are. Okay. I can live with that. But we do see there's a lot of consequences. In fact, just the fact that he met Sarah is, I think maybe the one time that they had a successful interaction at this party happened to be the reset.
Wow.
Your life can change a lot depending on these resets. For
You
sure.
know, I would say their little conversation that they had in one of the episodes, where actually I love the subjective, appraisal or whatever that Sarah brought up. It was a nice concept in the middle. They were connecting there, but then they were interrupted.
Right. Right.
So yeah, the final meeting that is the one that takes off doesn't occur until they're outside after the party is over.
Yep.
But yeah, they had connected a few times previous to that, but were interrupted.
No, it always seemed to be something. Either the bombs were starting to drop, and they're like, "Oh God, we got to go." Whatever.
Yeah.
So something was keeping them from having the
That's
perfect
true.
meeting.
Yeah.
And so I like the fact that the show is giving that there is a cost to resets.
Oh, yeah.
Resets are not just freebies.
Oh yeah. No.
And so that's good. That brings the stakes, which I like.
Yeah.
You know, one of the other things that these agents have to accept is that they are probably going to die violently over and over again.
Yes.
And yeah, okay, ultimately you wake up again, but still you have to experience the pain of a nuclear blast.
Yes.
I mean, that's nothing to see. It's the Dormammu I've come to bargain. You know, like, are you willing to violently be killed over and over again? That's a big ask.
Yes.
Right? I don't know. And so, yeah, it does something, I think, to these people's psyches, and you can understand now why so many of them, apparently, some percentage of them were like, I'm crazy and now I hate you. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like, Shiv's on the borderlands of that. And we find out that Shiv is like, they're like, hey, did you know, George, that the Lazarus Project tortures people?
Yes.
And compliments of Shiv. So yeah, again, it's like this, are they this morally pure superhero team? Essentially, no, they're not. So that's all good stuff too.
And actually,
what's the
Shiv in this aspect is actually reminding me. I was recently rewatching Lost, and he's a lot like Saeed.
Great point.
Became a torturer.
Past.
Yes.
Hell, maybe Shiv has a torturer present, but yeah, Reberov has become kind of an interesting villain character.
Yeah.
If I had to guess where it's going, again, I haven't seen the rest of this thing, but I would guess that
away.
Reberov has obviously made now an inroad with George here, and he's a manipulative guy. That's kind of part of his MO. It looks like.
Sure.
I think he's going to convince George. Well, hell, does he even have to convince him to get him out? I was gonna say he somehow has George spring him, but he may not even need to. If he can just convince George to hit the reset, then he's out.
Yeah, then he's out because he starts before
that's springing him.
Yes.
Yeah. So as long as he can really, give George a game plan for how to cause a major catastrophe. Like, look, that bomb that I have, here's where it is. Go set it off or whatever. So that it plays into Reberov's hands, obviously. So be like, oh, great, now I'm out again. Archie, as we've seen here, her reaction to her terrible loss is to like buy in.
Yes.
Okay, you're right. It was for a greater purpose.
Yep.
Hence, she's going to be like way into the cause and will not understand George turning on them.
Yeah, and potentially she's going to be really mad because that didn't happen for her.
Right? Exactly. Like, in other words, you were weak. I was the one. I had the same problem and I dealt with it. How come you didn't? Right. So yeah. No, there's a lot there, and they've set up some real fun interpersonal conflicts in this team, and I'm all for it.
Like, I have watched this episode a number of times because I do enjoy it. In fact, I'd say I enjoy it more than the first one too, and for the typical things where it's sort of like explaining the concept broadly is a difficult thing to do. And so here, this episode, they really get down to the nitty-gritty, which is great.
Yeah, and it's great. And just the fact that the structure of having essentially two flashbacks that are both happening is simultaneously in a way, and then it's also at the same time doing the heavy lifting of setting the rules and describing what's going on. And then it's also a great parallel to George's modern day conundrum of, my loved one just died and I could try to do a reset, but they won't let me.
Yes.
So it's like, oh, perfect. Yep, it's exactly. So it's great. I like it.
Yeah, and thankfully all their plans, they're not crazy. They're not like outlandish or whatever. If we can inspire this group to do something bad, or
we can start a coup if
we try going straight to the person and saying, no, here's all the information that you have, we know it, and this thing that you believe is not true, and so this bad stuff will happen, and they're just like, okay, they're just not buying it. This is not going to work.
Check that off. Checked it off the list. Yeah, good stuff, and I look forward to episode 3. So bring it on. Thank you as always, Paul. I appreciate it, good sir.
No problem.
And we'll talk to everybody next time. Bye.
Bye.